In this session, we want to look at two more concepts that will determine whether group policy object settings are applied to your client. The first concept is security filtering on a group policy object. Security filtering allows us to be very granular in how we apply group policies in our environment. Even though you have a group policy object, and that object, for example, is linked to an organizational unit, you may not want that GPO to apply to every object within that container. Perhaps you have more than one group in that container, and you want the policy to apply only to a single group in that container instead of all the groups that exist in that particular container. You can control this by assigning permissions for a particular group in that GPO, and that is called filtering. In this session, we also want to take a look at Wmi filtering, Windows Management Instrumentation, and this filtering concept is a way to specify how you would act on computers within your environment based on certain characteristics that you will choose. An example of this perhaps would be you want a policy to apply only on computers running a particular Windows operating system, or only on computers that have a certain amount of free disk space, etc. In short, you want to say, using the Wmi filtering, that you're only interested in specific computers for this particular GPO. And we're going to go through both of these concepts, and see how they work. In our example, we have the Finance Headquarters, OU. We're going to expand that. And in the Finance Headquarters, OU, we have a group policy called Wallpaper for Finance. And we want this wallpaper to be applied to the finance users OU. So we're going to click on the wallpaper GPO for finance. We're going to say OK to our message here. And what we want to look at is the scope. And you can see here that for this GPO, we have two groups. We have the Finance Users Group, and we have the Finance St. John Users Group. And both of these groups are a part of the Finance Headquarters OU. So the policy that is linked to the Finance OU will be for these two groups. These two groups will be able to use that wallpaper GPO. The wallpaper will appear on the computers of all the members in both these groups. But we want to apply a security filter. And the security filter will only allow one of the groups to use the policy. So once we apply this security filter, only one group will be allowed access to that policy. So how do we do that? We want our policy to apply only to one of these two groups. And we see that we also have the authenticated users group here, and that's by default. So we want to remove that. So we're going to click on authenticated users and click on remove. Say OK here, because we only want the policy to apply to the particular user or the particular group that we select. So we want now to click on delegation and advanced. Now what we need to do is to find the group that we don't want the policy to be applied to, choose that group, and take off the permissions for that group. So we're going to click on the group that we don't want, which is the finance users. And then we want to look at the permissions. That group has read permission, and the group has apply group policy permissions. Allow. Both of those permissions will give the finance users group access to the wallpaper policy. What we want to do is to deny those users those permissions. So for the apply group policy, we want to click in the deny box. And for the read permission, for them, we want to click in the deny box. And deny overrides everything else. So it means then that this group now will not have access to that wallpaper group policy object. And we're going to click on apply. And we can see here you're setting a deny permission entry. Deny entry takes precedence over allow entries. This means that if a user is a member of two groups, one that has allowed a permission and another that has denied the same permission, the user is denied that permission. Do you want to continue? And yes, we want to continue. We click on yes, and we click on OK. Now we want to go and look at the scope again. So we're going to click on scope for that group policy object. And we can clearly see here that only the Finance St. John group now have access to that wallpaper. So that's how we would filter a group policy object. If you have an organizational unit or you might have more than one group or a number of people, and what you want to do is you want to be very specific about who this policy is applied to or what group that policy is applied to. To do that, we perform what is called security filtering, where you actually go and remove the permissions, the security permissions for the particular group that you don't want to have access to the wallpaper group policy object. Next, we turn our attention to the Wmi filters, and you can see the object here in the left pane of your screen. You want to right click on Wmi filter, and you want to say new, and you want to type the name of the filter. We're going to click on F for finance, INANCE, space, machines. So we're going to call the filter finance machines. And in the description box, we want to type the description for the filter. So we're going to click in the description box. And we're going to say only because we're doing a filter only for the Windows 8 and 8.1 computers, which means that we only want the group policy to apply to computers that have operating systems of 8 and 8.1. So only Windows 8 and 8.1. Again, the name of the filter is Finance Machines, and the description that we're going to put is only Windows 8 and 8.1 because we want to create the Wmi filter that would allow us to specify that only computers that have operating systems 8 and 8.1 will be able to use the particular GPO. So we want to click on Add and make sure that you have root/CIM version 2 in the namespace. And we want to go ahead and type the filter. Our WMI query is going to be select from Win32 operating system where version greater than and equal to 6.1, which would be Windows 8 and Windows 8.1. So let's go ahead and type the query. Select asterisk, shift and asterisk from Win32 underscore, which is the shift and the underscore key, operating system, where version greater than and equal to 6.1. I want to put the shift point 1 in quotation marks. I want to close the quotation marks. So our query is select everything, that's asterisk, from Win32 underscore operating system, where version greater than equal to 6.1, and 6.1 is equivalent to Windows 8 and Windows 8.1. We can do lots of different queries. You can do a query to only let the policy apply to, for example, all the computers that have a certain amount of free space, that have a certain amount of memory, that sort of thing. What you have to do is to make sure that you have the OU with those computers in the OU, and you apply the filter to that particular organizational unit or group. So we want to go ahead and click OK here. And you want to save that filter. So you click on Save. Next, we want to expand Wmi Filters so that we can see the filter. The filter is called Finance Machine. Let's click on it. And remember that the GPO was Finance Machines GPO. So we want to make sure that this filter is attached to that particular GPO. So we're going to click on the Finance Machine GPO. And at the bottom of the screen, you see Wmi filtering, and it says, this GPO is linked to the following Wmi filter. Do you want to click the down arrow? You want to choose the filter that you created, which was Finance Machine, and you want to click on that filter. You're going to get a message saying, would you like to change the Wmi filter to Finance Machines? And you want to go ahead and click Yes. At this point, the Wmi filter is assigned to your GPO, and only those computers meeting the specifications of this filter will receive the GPO. If you have computers which are the target of your filter and the computers aren't receiving the GPOs they should, it's likely that the filter has been written incorrectly. So be careful with your filtering query. To write the filter, you need to know how to use the query language, or you can go online and look for specific filters that you want to use and modify them to be used for your particular set of computers. In this session, we have looked at security filtering, and we have looked at Wmi filtering as a way of applying policies, group policy objects, just to specific computers or specific groups or users. This is the end of our session, and we want to thank you for listening.